In the democracies at present, many who sincerely hate all of Nazism's manifestations are working for ideals whose realization would lead straight to the abhorred tyranny. Canada's economic life is under threat from bureaucratic tumor. If the government's growth rate continues unchecked, the citizens' resources will be completely drained, leaving the nation lifeless. While it's not too late to remove this tumor, immediate action is required. Canada is currently walking what Nobel Prize-winning economist Friedrich Hayek called the road to serfdom. Hayek described how state economic planning, regardless of its initial intentions, inevitably leads to dictatorship, turning individuals into mere instruments for achieving government goals. Bureaucracy is overtaking Canadian society to implement what Klaus Schwab, the leader of the World Economic Forum, calls the Great Reset, or what the United Nations refers to as Agenda 2030. It's important to note that Canada is not alone in this endeavor. This agenda is being implemented by 193 countries, including the United States, France, the Netherlands, Australia, New Zealand, and the United Kingdom, to name just a few. Justin Trudeau, an agenda contributor for the WEF, and his fellow young global leader, Jagmeet Singh, have been spearheading the implementation of the UN's Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs for short. The SDGs are a set of 17 interconnected objectives established by the United Nations in 2015, aimed at creating an equitable world while simultaneously stopping climate change. These politicians and bureaucrats think so highly of themselves that they believe they can solve two problems humanity has never been able to address at the same time. Whether the Sustainable Development Goals are admirable or not is irrelevant. The outcome will be the same: economic slavery and mass suffering. Left to their own devices, humans pursue different goals with varying degrees of success. However, implementing a global agenda requires all of humanity to value and work toward the same outcome. When that goal is saving the world via central planning, it is especially dangerous. If governments believe they are saving humanity, any means can be justified. As Frederick Holderlin noted, what has always made the state a hell on earth has been precisely that man has tried to make it his heaven. In The Road to Serfdom, Friedrich Hayek outlines a process that begins with promises of utopia and ultimately leads to the creation of hell. Initially, planners refrain from forcing agreement, believing that their aim is so noble and commendable that citizens will jump on board with their plan, held together by empty slogans and lofty promises. However, planners soon hit a roadblock. They realize that what the farmer likes, the factory worker doesn't. What the real estate agent likes, the banker doesn't. What the tradesman like, the accountant doesn't. Selling a plan proves a lot harder than the central planners originally imagined. When individuals decide their goals do not align with those of central planners, they become the eggs that need to be broken in order to create the utopian omelet. As Hayek observes, in a planned system, we cannot confine collective action to the tasks on which we agree, but are forced to produce agreement on everything in order that any action can be taken at all. This leads planners to create a propaganda machine, hoping to mold public opinion in their favor. Hayek noted that individuals spend the vast majority of their days working with little time off for vacations and hobbies. This imbalance causes one's happiness and satisfaction to be more heavily affected by their work than their leisure. Thus, individuals greatly differ when making career decisions. Hayek argues few people ever have an abundance of choice of occupation, but what matters is that we have some choice, that we are not absolutely tied to a job which has been chosen for us, and that if one position becomes intolerable, or if we set our heart on another, there is always a way for the able, at some sacrifice, to achieve this goal. However, to build their utopia, planners need everyone to work toward the same goal. They use their propaganda machine to educate people about the necessity of achieving their aims. Hayek warns that collectivism means the end of truth. To make a totalitarian system function efficiently, it is not enough that everybody should be forced to work for the ends selected by those in control. It is essential that the people should come to regard these ends as their own. This is brought about by propaganda and by complete control of all sources of information. The planners attempting to establish uniform views among the citizenry causes them to bend reality in order to fit their narrative. The more gullible citizens agree with the planners, while the more individualistic members of society disagree, leading to arguments and protests. Two factions emerge, fundamentally disagreeing on the direction that society should take. Meanwhile, central planning starts to cause economic issues. Public spending leads to higher taxes and inflation, while government intervention in the market distorts supply and demand. The more planners improvise, the more the economy destabilizes, causing great suffering. Bureaucrats, unwilling to recognize that their plan is causing the problems, start believing that the citizenry's inability to unite around their ingenious plan is the cause of the destabilization. Propaganda is no longer enough. Obedience must be obtained at all costs. Planners start scapegoating individuals who disagree with their plan, convincing themselves that unreliable elements, or dissenters, need to be dealt with. Secret police and intelligence agencies begin forcing obedience through terror, and anyone standing in the way of saving humanity faces exile, imprisonment, or execution. By this point, all citizens have accepted their fate: help the party implement their agenda or perish. All freedom is gone, and the most important virtue becomes obedience to the state's plan. Every aspect of a citizen's life is then to be organized and directed by the state according to their plan. An individual can expect their profession, wages, diet, entertainment, and exercise to be planned. Even one's thinking is planned. Hayek warns that in the dictatorship, there is no room for difference of opinion. Posters, radio, press all tell you the same lies. If a citizen fails to live up to the state's expectations and doesn't carry out their agenda sufficiently, their discipline is the next thing to be planned. Hayek notes that if you're fired from your job, it's apt to be by a firing squad. What used to be an error has now become a crime against the state. Thus ends the road to serfdom. The goal of this video is not to scare you into paralysis, but to illuminate the current path Canada is on. There is still time to turn this around, but it's crucial to reject the policies that will build the totalitarian state. This includes digital IDs, global vaccination passports, ESG, DEI, CBDCs, online censorship, 15-minute cities, mass migration, universal basic income, and any other policy that is being mandated in the name of sustainable development. There is good news, though. More people are becoming aware that those promising to save the world seem more interested in consolidating power than addressing the struggles citizens face due to their failed economic planning. It's not enough to simply oppose a bad plan, though. A better path forward needs to be presented. Fortunately, Friedrich Hayek has already outlined the antidote to central planning. We must clear away the obstacles with which human folly has recently encumbered our path and release the creative energy of individuals. We must create conditions favorable to progress rather than planning progress. It is not those who cry for more planning who show the necessary courage, nor those who preach a new order, which is no more than a continuation of the tendencies of the past 40 years and who can think of nothing better than to imitate Hitler. It is, indeed, those who cry loudest for a planned economy who are most completely under the sway of the ideals which have created this war and most of the evils from which we suffer. The guiding principle in any attempt to create a world of free men must be this: a policy of freedom for the individual is the only truly progressive policy. If you enjoy videos or articles like this, please consider subscribing to the Blendr News Substack, where you can find exclusive content including articles, podcasts, and direct access to us at Blendr News. Thank you for watching, and we'll catch you next time.